Welcome to Season 5 of Talking Home Renovations with the House Maven. I'm your host, Catherine McPhail. I am an architect practicing in Massachusetts. My passion is old houses, new technologies, and sustainability. Previous seasons of this podcast have featured many vendors, subcontractors, architects, designers, covering many aspects of renovations and hiring professionals to help. In this season, I'll be focusing on collecting even more renovation stories because we can all learn from each other and I just can't resist talking to people about their houses. We're calling this episode From Massage Parlor to Masterpiece, a roller coaster ride of a historic home renovation in Old Towne Orange. My guest is Hugh Siler, who was with us in episode 79, where we discussed how to find, buy, and restore your first historic home. Hugh has been gaining recognition with his restoration of old homes in the historic district of Old Towne Orange in California. Hugh and his team create restorations with an undeniable cool factor, and he rents them out to historic home-loving tenants. Recently, his project, the 1905 J.W.Wilson House, was awarded the Sweet Sweet Orange Award, the City of Orange's top honor for restoration excellence. So it's this project that we discussed today, plus Hugh's plans for an infill accessory dwelling unit that he's working on. My question is, the J.W.Wilson House, was it really a massage parlor? Unfortunately, we didn't get into that exactly, but you will learn about his challenges. Hugh likes to say he's made just about every mistake in the book, so you don't have to. Here's my conversation with Hugh. Thanks for joining me, Hugh.
Thank you for having me.
You had Ted's Garage last time I spoke with you, and you've done many, many projects. But today, what are you going to be telling me about?
We're going to talk about the house that I restored prior to Ted's Garage, this was the fifth of 5 homes on the block of homes that we restored in Old Towne Orange. Old Towne Orange is about 5 miles from Disneyland here in Southern California. So this was the fifth of 5.
Fifth of 5. Okay. Tell me about it. What do you call it?
So the house was literally, it was a tough one for me to get my head around restoring it because it was in such dismal condition. And it being the fifth of the one on the block, quite frankly, I was completely burned out, financially trying to figure out how to pay for it. And looking at this place, which I intentionally kept it vacant for 2 years. I didn't want anybody living in it because it was in such disrepair. So after a long time of saying, I really don't want to do this, I had to do it just for the integrity of the rest of the block. So the house is a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. It's a corner house built in 1905. It's considered a hipped roof, 1.5-story California cottage is the architectural style.
Okay.
It was built by a gentleman by the name of John Wilson. It's called the J.W.Wilson House. And in 1905, he built this. And then he also built 2 of the cottages, which are behind it, that we previously restored. One of the cottages was built in 1910. We restored it in 2016. He had another cottage that he built in 1914 for $800. We restored that one in 2017. 2018, we restored the 2 houses next door to his 2 cottages, and then we jumped onto this one as the last one.
Okay, so you must have had some challenges with this thing if it was in such dismal shape.
Yeah, we had quite a few challenges. Literally from the outside, the paint had, I don't know how many coats of paint. We're talking about 115, 17 years worth of paint crazing and just siding falling off. Nothing that's like all that different from a lot of home restorations. But when you've done the 4 next to it and your pocketbook says, oh my gosh, here we go with the biggest one, final one on the block, it was tough to get my arms around. Inside was pretty wrecked. The kitchen literally didn't have any running water in the kitchen. Kitchen had no kitchen counters. It was just, it worked. It just didn't work very well, and it certainly wouldn't work for the 21st century. So, it was time for a reboot and a do-over.
So it never had any running water, or just when you got there?
It didn't have running water in the kitchen. You had to go out to a mudroom, which was, it wasn't like it was that inconvenient, but at the end of the day, I think most people expect to have running water in their kitchen and kitchen cabinets in their kitchen.
Most people do, I find.
Most people are funny that way.
Right. So what did you end up doing for siding on that? Did you take it off?
So we ended up restoring virtually every piece of it. And it was kind of ironic because we used a product called, it's actually a tool, and it's a scraping tool called the paint shaver. It's a pretty expensive tool. We ended up spending, me and a crew of 3 guys, so a total of 4 of us, spent about 4.5 months scraping every inch of, and primarily lead-based paint. The beauty of this particular tool is that it is EPA certified, OSHA certified, etc. And when the paint scrapes, it goes right into a HEPA filter into your vacuum, and then you bag it up, you send it away, and everything is isolated and contained.
That sounds great.
That's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is it's just a hellacious process, 2-story building, taking virtually every stitch of paint off to reveal what was ultimately this magnificent redwood building. So, once we got it all tore apart and all taken back, it was like, wow, this is really, really a fantastic building. Now we need to go back and fix all of the bad wood, all the wood rot, and then go back and start building it up with primer, coats of primer, sand the primer, another coat of primer, coat of paint, sand the paint. And so ultimately, after 6 months of 4 of us working on it, and everybody in the neighborhood saying, like, what is this guy doing? He took it all the way back to bare wood. I wonder if he'll do that for my house. I mean, I had so many neighbors out. I'm like, no, I don't want to do it for this house.
Yeah.
So and then ultimately we applied all the paint, redid all the trim work, and literally it came out beautifully.
I bet. So what colors did you? I'm just curious to know what colors you uncovered in your process taking it off.
Well, and because this house has been a rental, much like the rest of the block has been for largely the past 70 years, the previous owners chose to do everything in white.
Oh.
So it had just, there was no character at all. It was just white on top of white on top of white. And then when you finally got it back down to it, I believe there was a coat of yellow.
Oh, okay.
And it was just a real dingy yellow color.
Yeah. Well, white is white, I suppose, but it's not the gobstopper I was hoping for that you had a bunch of different colors going through.
Right.
Right. Well, okay. What about the kitchen? What ended up happening there? Is that the one that you got the metal cabinets?
So the kitchen, I think one of my friends said it best. He walked in and looked at the kitchen, and he literally said, this place looks like a bunch of Vikings came here and just pillaged this place. Mm-hmm. It was awful. It literally looked like, I can't even describe everything, how bad it was. But anyway, once we got things pulled apart, I found somebody in Pasadena, which is obviously Pasadena, California is known for its historic architecture and a number of significant homes, including the Gamble House. But I found somebody that was gutting their kitchen and taking out some 1940s, 1950s metal cabinets.
I love those.
I love them too. And I wanted a real kind of industrial feel and vibe to the house. And so found those on eBay, found enough of them to not only do the kitchen, do the uppers, do the lowers, to outfit the mud room as well with counters as well as upper cabinets. And then we also used them in the bathroom as well. So we literally, for $1,000, I got all of my cabinets, and then we took and stripped all of those down, repainted them, and installed them.
So how did you work that out? If you got the cabinets, did you then design the kitchen around what you had for cabinets?
Totally.
And you didn't have to add any new ones or anything?
No, it came down to a lot of cutting, which, the beauty of the metal old cabinets is it's kind of like an erector set in terms of everything is kind of bolted together in pieces and in different sizes and configurations. So what we did is we, just as you alluded to, we figured out what sizes we had, and then we designed the kitchen around what we had and what we salvaged. And then what worked well, and when it didn't work well, we got out the grinder and cut it so it did work really well. So literally all of the countertops are salvaged, all of the upper cabinets are salvaged, the lowers, the Lazy Susan, virtually everything is salvaged off eBay for $1,000 bill for all of the cabinets.
Wow, that is amazing.
It turned out great. It's I've always wanted to do the metal cabinets, never thought I would, and then this deal just kind of like fell into my lap. So
nice.
It was meant to be.
In your experience for a kitchen like that, how much would new cabinets cost? Just to compare.
I don't think you could get them built, painted, and installed for under $20,000.
Yeah, cabinets are really expensive. I mean, that's obvious, right? But
custom cabinetry is, it makes or breaks the house. One of the things that why I didn't want to do that, well, two reasons. One is that from a cash flow perspective, there was no money. I mean, I had to be really creative on this particular kitchen restoration. Secondly, this house is zoned commercial and residential. And when I was figuring out whether to keep, sell, keep, restore, sell, restore, one of the thoughts was, well, if I put all of this money into kitchen cabinetry, custom kitchen cabinetry, and then I decide to put this house on the market, first thing that's going to get gutted is all that custom cabinetry, because somebody's going to turn it into their law offices or their CPA accounting firm. So that was another reason why if I had to do it over again, would I want to do the custom wooden cabinets? Yeah, I would. If I had the budget, of course. Life doesn't always work out that way. So we improvised, and it turned out really cool instead.
I don't know. I love that idea, though, of reusing those cabinets, because if someone else did buy the house and they wanted different cabinets, then nobody wasted the money on the cabinets. Even if you did the other custom cabinets, people might feel like they need to keep those. I don't like that. I don't want to buy the house. I don't know. I feel like the kitchen cabinets are a pretty personal thing. Yep. That was a great move. Did you have any other major money saving moves you'd like to share?
Major money saving, other than doing it myself, doing a large portion of the work with this crew of literally the three guys who started with me are the three gentlemen who finished with me, been with me over 20 years. So we knew going in, this is what we had to do, but the fact that we all made it to the finish line unscathed, nobody killed each other. And after 3+ years of working literally side by side, 60 hours a week, that was just a really cool feeling, knowing what we started with on that block, we finished with, and it truly became like just an exemplary block here in Southern California.
Yeah, no, that's great. You mentioned that there was some kind of ornate plaster happening in the house.
When you walked into the house, in the living room and in the dining room, there was this really cool filigree up in each of the four corners of the house. And it's a hand-applied filigree that was literally falling off. Everything around it, above it and below it, was completely falling off the walls. And we all looked at it, and it was kind of two people, myself and my carpenter, said, yeah, I think we could save it. And the other two guys on the crew said, no way, get rid of it. And so I said, there's no way we're getting rid of this. I don't care how long it takes us. I don't care what we need to do. We're saving that filigree. So I did a lot of research, and there's a product called Wally's Plaster Magic.
Oh, I like the name of that. I don't even care what it does.
And that's exactly why I thought, if he's going to name it Wally's Plaster Magic, it's probably a pretty good product. So I contacted him, talked him through in terms of what I was trying to accomplish, and literally it worked perfectly. And the magic, or the secret sauce to Wally's Plaster Magic, is he has these large plastic grommets and a syringe, and you shoot this glue-like substance into the void, into the crack, into the hole, and then you take and screw in the plastic grommet into the existing plaster, and then it holds it and bonds it up to the ceiling. And literally, we had probably 120 of those little grommet, little discs screwed into the ceiling, and give it a couple of days. You come back, you loosen those up, and literally, voila! Oh. It's now attached to the glue that he uses, along with the technique. Literally attaches right back into the lath.
Wow!
So you're shooting the glue into the lath, and literally we saved it, and then we just started from that point down, and we retextured the walls, and it came out. It's not perfect, but I would say it's certainly an A-.
That's awesome. So you take off the grommets the second day after it's already held it up. So it's holding it in place while it dries, essentially.
Correct.
I love that.
Precisely.
I love that.
So that worked out really good. It was a little non-conventional, because I think a lot of people, and keep in mind, my finished product is offered to tenants.
Yeah.
I'm not a flipper. I don't buy these and do a quick job and get out from underneath them. The goal here is to restore everything as closely to possible as what it was in 1905. We accomplished that. That's the good news. The question is that whenever we're doing this, is the tenant going to appreciate it?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's really is the return on investment, is not just like saving the history, but does the tenant care? Mm-hmm. And every time, we've only had 2 vacancies with this unit in the 4 years, it's been 3.5 years it's been done, but each time tenants walk in and go, "Oh my God, look at those ceilings."
Ah.
And every time I hear that, I say, "Okay,
Yeah,
that
right.
was the right
If they
decision."
don't say that, I bet they don't even get to fill out an application. That would be
Right,
the way I'd go
exactly.
with that one.
Yep.
1905, what was going on in that area at the time? Was it already pretty well settled?
So the town was started in 1888. And so, literally, 1905, the town had a major hotel literally across the street from this particular building. Unfortunately, that structure caught on fire in the 50s or 60s. And so, what you had was a lot of fairly wealthy people, such as apparently Mr. Wilson, who on corner lots were building their larger homes. Traditionally out here, and it's probably the same in most places where there's a historic district, but the corner houses are usually more stately, usually bigger, usually more, there's more architectural design and more elements to them as opposed to the infill houses. So on the two corner houses that we restored, including this one, it's definitely one of the bigger houses in Old Towne, 2-story, 4 bedrooms, 2 bath, which is even more ironic that he built a 4-bedroom, 2 bath when he had no kids and it was just him and his wife.
Yeah.
So I guess he was just doing it to spend the money to show, he was a successful business person.
Right. And was he?
He was, until he finished building his 3 houses, the 2 cottages and then this house. And I had a biographer, the city's biographer did the biography on this house. So it was a foggy night in 1927, and Mr. Wilson was walking down the street. And whether he was had been nipping at the bottle or whether it was just a bad decision, but he stepped into the road, got hit by a car, and was paralyzed. And 2 or 3 days later, while in the hospital, he ended up succumbing to it. So his wife literally lived in the house until like the 1940s. So she was the only person in the 4-bedroom with her 2 cottages behind it. And then literally from like the 1950s onward, it was just a rental that pretty much was trashed and tired. And that's when I picked it up and started on it started on the block in 2016.
And you bought the whole block at one time?
I bought the whole block from a family. It was a trust on the block, and they literally had not. There was a disclaimer in the purchase documents which said, "We don't know anything about this block of homes. We haven't visited it in years. You are buying this as is. Where is? Good luck."
Okay.
I'm like, okay, that's fair enough.
Good luck. At least they said good luck.
Fair enough. So
interesting. So did they own a lot of the town, or do you know how they ended up with this block of homes? I'm always curious to know how this happens.
So the block was literally 2 parcels. So it was the house and the 2 cottages that we are talking about now. Mm-hmm. And then next door, there's a duplex. And so over time, at some point during the 50s, when Mr. Wilson's wife sold the house, then she sold it to the folks next door, which essentially meant that they owned the 5 houses on the block.
They just rented it out. They didn't.
They just
live
rented
there.
it out. Huh. Yeah, they literally just cash checks until I bought it. So for 65 years, the family owned the block. And then there was a death in the family. And then the trust took over. The trust decided to sell the assets. And that's where I came along.
Sounds like they weren't necessarily the most hands-on landlords.
Not hands-on, and sometimes I wish I was more like them, but only for about 5 seconds. But no, they literally just, kept it on life support. And when it was time to pull the plug, these were in shambles. I mean, these were in really, really bad condition.
Yeah. Well, it's great that you saved them. Are you all done with all of the rest of that? Was a 5th of the 5, and then there was Ted's garage, right? So you're all done?
Yes. And then I'm building a 6th on the block. So what's happened in California is basically laws have changed to allow, even in historic districts, people such as myself to build accessory dwelling units, which are tiny cottages. So I've literally spent the past year, if working is the right word, I think battling is probably a better word, with the city and the Preservation Association. I was the first person to build an ADU in Old Towne. They weren't too keen about that. I'm now going to be building another one. And so that will be literally, it will look like 1910. It will be a cottage right next to the other 5 units on this block, sandwiched right in the middle of the block where over at some point in time, a garage was torn down or a garage caught on fire. And we're going to put this little cottage, which is literally going to look like 1910, was dropped into 2023 right in the middle of the block. So I'm at the point right now. In fact, I was notified this morning that my plans were approved for that, which is great. However, they weren't approved for what I want to build.
Oh.
So,
well, close, I guess. Close, but no cigar. So
we're close.
Now do you go back and try to appeal that decision, or?
It's a good question. I'm pretty disappointed right now. So, it's either going to turn into, an appeal with attorneys getting rich. I really don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sitting back and looking at it going, it's a pretty subjective call. I don't like the way the call was made, obviously. So we'll see. Worst case is we build what I call a B- product, and I would like to build an A+ product. And so we need to close that gap, and we need to get there and build something that's really cool, historically correct, and the city will be proud of it.
Well, you're doing great work, Hugh. So don't give up. I know you won't give up.
Trust me.
I know you won't. Well, that's awesome, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the image that you're gonna send over, which I'll put on Instagram. Absolutely. If that's okay.
Absolutely.
So how do people find more information out about you and your work?
More importantly is just finding out about the properties. Right. I don't work for, I literally just do this as a fun little hobby. I'm retired. And so I get asked all the time, hey, would you build an ADU for us? Can we hire you to do this? I'm flattered, but I'm pretty busy doing what I like to do, which is just kind of tinkering on my own stuff. So essentially, all of the homes are listed on Instagram under the handle Historic Home Row, also on Facebook. So they can find us certainly there, and they'll see all sorts of neat pictures. If somebody does happen to be looking for a home, one of the things that I found is that literally social media is like the app killer. I mean, it's unbelievable. The minute I post something on Instagram that we have a vacancy coming up, literally within minutes, maybe a couple of hours, I have 10 people lined up. And when I get a vacancy, I tell people we're going to have an open house the very next Saturday. I post it on Instagram and Facebook, and we have 25 people that show up literally wanting the units.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing because there are still a lot of people that want details, and it's even more satisfying for somebody like me because it's like, they can definitely find something cheaper. There's no doubt. And I tell people, if you're looking for a roof over your head and just housing, we're not a good fit. If you're looking for something really cool, detail-oriented, honestly, without sounding like it's boastful, you're not going to find anything cooler. I mean, certainly not in Orange County, California. We take great pride into completely restoring these homes, despite the roadblocks that the city likes to throw at us and the Preservation Association. There's literally not. I tell people, if you can find somebody stupid enough to do what I do, I would like to shake his hand.
Maybe make some new friends out there, Hugh. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on again, and I look forward to maybe having you back next year, see what you've been up to.
Sounds good. Thanks, Catherine.
All right. Thank you for listening, and thank you so much for sharing this show with your friends. It is growing all the time, and I really appreciate that. I would love to hear from you if you have anything to say about this episode or past episodes, good or bad, or a suggestion for a new episode. Send me an email at thehousemaven@talkinghomerenovations.com. Talking Home Renovations with the House Maven is a proud member of Gable Media, the most engaged AEC network on the planet. Check out my other show and all the rest of the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABLMEDIA.com. And until next time, take it easy.
Part 3 is a collaborative, data-driven construction administration software built for architects and engineers. With Part 3, you'll complete your administrative tasks faster than ever before. You'll streamline your submittals, RFIs, change documents, and field reports with automation and intelligence. Stop wasting time on tedious tasks. Schedule a free demo of this transformative automation tool today at part3.io/get started. That's part3.io/get started. Experience construction administration performance today with Part 3.